So we have Pam Flynn with us tonight. Pam, come on up. This is a very interesting story about a 75-unit apartment complex. Pam has now had it for, going on about 5 years. She acquired it, actually purchased it from another member. And so you'll get to see the things that she's done since she's acquired it and the results that we have. But before we do that, Pam, tell us a little bit about who you are. You've been an environmental engineer. I'm not going to try to guess what that is. I'm going to let you explain to me what it is.
Well, when I was an environmental engineer, I worked in the cement and concrete industry. So it's kind of a long and drawn out story, but the bottom line is I did it for 18 years and I don't have to do it anymore. So there you go. Shall I just start?
Yeah, so you became a member when, in 2015?
A member in 2015, yes.
And this is what it used to look like when you used to sit at your desk. You would get a plaque, right? That's how you got rewarded. I serve all these years and they give me a plaque. Really? Is that it? That's all there is to corporate work?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, so that picture was taken the second time I was laid off. And I was trying to look miserable, but I really wasn't. So my whole company got laid off because we were bought out by a larger company, and so everybody in the smaller company lost their jobs, including me. And I was so happy because I got severance, and 2 weeks later I closed on the 75 unit that I'm about to present.
Yeah,
and but everybody else was miserable, so I felt bad being happy, so I tried to look sad.
Pam was also in the service. We don't have the pictures of you tonight when you were in the service. You served overseas for a while, didn't you?
I did. I was in Afghanistan for a year.
So let's talk a little bit about Darby Square. You've had it now for about 5 years. You bought it in 2017. Tell us a little bit about the purchase price, kind of the terms, investors, capital raise.
So I bought it in July 2017 from another Lifestyles member. So they already had a loan on it and a supplemental, which is like an additional loan. And I assumed those two loans. I bought it for $4.8 million, which was $64,000 a door. And I was like, oh my God, that's so much money. But I am almost under contract right now for $105,000 a door. So that's exciting.
I'll do those numbers with you and show them in a few moments. Let me ask a couple questions here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll hand it back to you while we're dealing with one microphone. The cash out of pocket, and what I want my folks to see on here is you see $1.579 million. That's a lot of money, isn't it? How many investors did you bring in to this acquisition? How many investors does that 1.5 million represent?
22.
Okay, so it's not 1, 2, 3, or 4 investors, it's several investors. 22 investors come together to raise this $1.6 million. So what I want you to do is pay attention to that, because as we scroll through a few more slides, you're going to see what that 1.579 million turned into if she was to sell the property today. So we'll come back to that. $110,000 in rehab budget. Tell us what that means. That was money that you decided to put back into the property through interior upgrades or maybe some exterior things. I mean, I think maybe you'd had some roofs that you may have done.
Well, originally there wasn't money for roofs, so we just waited for a hailstorm, and that was that.
Well, that works.
Right, you're in Texas, it's inevitable, right? So the $110,000 through inspections and through talking to the previous owner, we knew that there were 10 units that still needed work. I mean, this was a yield play, but it had a little bit of value add, so we could renovate those 10 units. Plus, I wanted to do some other things to develop other income, which we're going to talk about in a minute.
So when we talk about yield for some of our newer folks, it's a stabilized property. It's been well managed, taken care of, it's operating well, And it was a matter of Pam coming in, taking over, putting her business plan together, and implementing some things that she wanted to do to continue on with the investment. Okay. Income, expenses. So what we're looking at here is the annualized income, in other words, collections on the property, rent, other income that she has is close to $800,000. Expenses is about $375,000. So the NOI, net operating income, is a little over $420,000, and that's something that Chris will talk about, net operating income. But here's the thing I wanted to point out on this property. You see where it says cash on cash return to date 66%? That's what she's paid her investors over a 4.5 years. So if you invested $100,000, you've been paid over a 4.5 period $66,000. How's that for a return? Pretty good, right? As a passive investor, you're not contributing any work. You're merely investing into the investment. So Pam, that's a really nice job. So over $1 million has been paid out year to date. And in a moment, we're going to talk about $7.9 million. Remember Pam said the property now is worth $7.9 million? We're going to do a calculation in a few moments and tell you what that means to you if you were an investor in this deal. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done before and after. Looks like a dog park. Looks like you put some storage units in.
We did, actually, that's a playground. So one of the suggestions from the previous owner, who's also a Lifestyles member, was, hey, you have some space here, why don't you put some storage units? So I built 3 storage units on where he recommended, and then I noticed there was a whole lot of space in the playground that the kids weren't using, so we did 300 square feet of storage units. So all in all, we had 11 total, and for the most part, they stay rented just from the residents at Darby Square, and it brings us in anywhere from $500 to $700 a month. It's really nice.
And so when we talk about all other income, these storage units were driving additional income, which grows the net operating income, which grows the overall value of the property. So that was a good move on your part. Dog park, no, that's a playground that you did over there, which is good. Okay. What do we have here?
This is just an aesthetic thing. So the office is the door on the left and the laundry room is the door on the right. So the door on the left, we just put an awning over it and just put some better signage. Put some plants in front of the laundry room, changed the door because, well, people were breaking in through all that glass. So, and it just has an overall more inviting and nicer look.
Looks good. And then some things on the interior.
So on the interior, remember we've had this property for 5 years. So initially there were only 10 units that hadn't been renovated, and they had like the old linoleum squares. And so on the left you can see the old, and then we updated a little bit to nicer colors, better lighting. But now we've had it so long that things are changing, you know, gray and those kind of tones are in. So we're actually going through another phase of renovations. So the one on the right is the newer look.
Good.
We stay fresh, we stay modern, and this helps us to stay competitive and get good residents.
Yeah, what you want to do is you don't want to make a significant investment. You want to make sure it's appealing, that what the resident is looking for, that wants to live in the area where you're at. So, good. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about the numbers here, and I'm not going to go through them line by line, but here's the bottom line. This is a property that Pam has had for 5 years. And the first year, or the second year actually, was about a 7.9% return. But where does it really get good? Look at year 3. That's when they refinanced the property. They took out a supplemental loan, and I believe it was, Pam, over $1 million or close to that, I believe?
It was exactly $1 million.
Exactly $1 million. With that, as a result of refinancing, you'll notice in red, of that, she gave back over $750,000 back to her investor. So think about this for a moment. The total capital raise from all of the 22 investors was just short of 1.6 million. By the time you got to the third year, she returned not only $750,000, but an additional $95,000 for a 54% return. Pretty nice. That would have been an exciting year for me, that's for sure. And then as we get into year 5, the additional returns there. Here's the one that really tells the whole story. And, you know, Pam bought this property. Well, the purchase price was a little close to $5 million. It was $4.8 million. Well, as the NOI grew year after year, so if you follow me to year 5, the NOI 396 in year 2 all the way up to 420. Now let's say we wanted to sell this property, which I think Pam has some intentions of doing that pretty soon. So based on a $420,000 NOI in today's market, it's probably worth right at $7.9 million. That's probably where this property is going to trade at. Well, what's the first thing you have to do when you have to pay the debt off? You have to pay the lender back, right? And so the amount of the debt payoff that has to go back to the lender is about $4.2 million. So you got to pay that back. What's the next thing you got to pay back? You got to give the investors all of their investment back. Remember, they invested $1.57 million. You got to pay them that portion of it back. Then, if you take a look at all the 5 years on cash distributions that have been paid out, represents about $1.2 million. That includes some excessive cash that she has on the books right now that will go unused. Once you add all those numbers up, the total cash and equity capture, $3.3 million. $3.3 million above and beyond the 1.579. So think about this for a moment. You invested 1.579, you got all that money back, 3.3, that's 211% in 5 years. That's about a 37, 38% rate of return annually on that. I would say that's one heck of a good deal on that. Pam, congratulations. That's really a nice deal.
Thank you.
How'd I miss out on that? I remember you and I analyzing this. That's how far back you and I go, because we were talking about it. But
yeah, Doug was my mentor on this deal.
I think she turned me down and wouldn't let me in, something like that. I don't know what it was.
I did it.
Anyhow, so Pam, that's a wonderful story. She's done a remarkable job. She was fortunate to acquire this property from a member who did a fantastic job. Mm-hmm. They were the ones that really had to do all the heavy lifting and a lot of the work. And Pam was able to come in and do what she wanted to do over the next 5 years and should be rewarded. You and your investors rewarded real soon for all that hard work. Good job on that. So one of the things different from single-family houses, single-family houses is brick and mortar. With multifamily, it's net operating income. When you grow your net operating income, the value of the property becomes more. Talk just for a couple moments about what are some of the things that you did that helped you grow your NOI?
Well, so the first thing that we did was we built the storage units and then we bought some vending machines. So as I mentioned earlier, the storage units brought in around $600 a month, and the vending machines gave me an extra 10 pounds, and they brought in about another $200 or $300 a month. So it all adds up. Next, we were really careful about paying attention to our apartments and designing something nice. So we put a lot of effort into that, and then once we had a design, we just, cookie cutter, everyone was going to be the same design. After that, I think it's really important to realize that your staff is your biggest asset. So I wanted to make sure that my staff felt appreciated, because if one of them up and left, then I got to fill in, or there's a big gap in services. So it's very important to make sure that they were adequately rewarded and that they felt that their efforts were were really appreciated. So I put a lot of effort into that as well. Next, you want to make sure that your residents feel like your customers. So we never had the attitude of, aha, you signed the lease, you're stuck here for a year, and we'll fix it when we get ready to fix it. That was all of our competitors, and that's why we got all of their customers, right? So we have rules in place where if something is broke, we have a 48-hour turnaround time unless it's an emergency, and then it's much faster. I think it's very important that your residents want to stay after their lease is up, and if you're not fixing stuff, they're not going to stay, and if they don't stay, then there's a lot of cost in turning that apartment and finding another resident, and we don't want that.
Tenant retention is extremely important. You want that renewal. It helps minimize expenses. I mean, turning units is an expense that we try to avoid. We want to keep the resident if they're a great resident.
So another thing that we did was we listened to Teresa, who's our mentor for operations.
There she is. That's Teresa right there. She's a part of our team. She helps a lot. So thank you, Teresa.
So Teresa is a great advocate of community policies. So community policies is everything that the lease doesn't cover. And it's all about community living and do unto others as they do unto you. So we have very strong community policies complete with if your toilet breaks because of normal wear and tear, we're going to fix it. But if your kid flushed his teddy bear down in the toilet and that's why it doesn't work, well, that's a charge. And these are all designed so that people make the mistake once and they don't do it again. And if you're lenient, human nature takes over and you're going to pay for it. So you want to set the policies and get everybody in line with how it's going to go. So we had really good community policies and people signed them and we also charged fines, which was really helpful for our bottom line as well.
The bottom line is Pam had all the things set in place. She knew where the ultimate goal was. She knew where she wanted to reach her NOI. She's done that, and we've seen, the triple-digit returns that your investors will get to see. So I've had an opportunity to work on and off with Pam for several years. I've been to the property several times, and she's a efficient and great operator, and I think we can all see the results of that coming to fruition. So good, Pam. So I like this. You're now the captain. Right?
I'm the captain now. Does anybody recognize that?
So is that a military term? You're the captain?
It's from a movie.
Oh,
does anybody know the movie? Captain Phillips, thank you.
Okay, well, she truly is the captain now.
And I was a captain in the military too, so it's kind of fun for me to say
Control your own time and do all that.
That's right, I don't have a boss. I love it.
Yeah, good. All right, so let's, Pam, just take a couple seconds. Mm-hmm. You're soon going to move on from Darby Square at some point in time. Mm-hmm. So what's your day going to look like going forward in the future?
Well, I think that I'll be in the market for another one as soon as the time is right for me. I do have 2 other properties that I'm running. And
so you will, look for larger acquisitions.
Yes, yes.
And I think we'll probably see that in short order, if not this year, sometime next year. So
probably sometime in early 2023, I think.
And we'll do that. So, okay, tell us a little bit about some of the vendors that you worked with. I know we have one with us today.
David Walls.
David Walls, who was key, and financing is key. Financing is key, and Old Capital was very good about finding the right type of financing for us and going the extra mile for Pam, and we can see that in the results because of the great financing that you were able to get. So that's very key, great vendor, helps with many of our members put structure financing. So a great asset to have. So, and then you had some legal work done with another vendor that helped you out on some things, and that was
Dodson Legal. They're wonderful.
Yeah, and helped you out there. So, Pam, I think that's great. Let's give Pam a hand for the wonderful story. And again, I started off by saying, for those of you that are your first or second time here, I'd like to be able to answer some questions about investing in multifamily, maybe some of the things that you saw that you have some questions on. Either Pam or myself would enjoy answering those for you. Yes, sir.
So Pam, was that, and you mentioned you're running 2 other properties. Was this 1, 2, or 3?
Okay, so the question is, we're talking about Darby Square tonight. Was this your first acquisition, second acquisition?
That was the first one. I actually had a 12-unit that I sold in order to, well, I owned Darby, but it's gone now. But Darby was the first big one.
Who would be next? Yeah, Mark?
Where's this property located?
Do you know how to get there? South San Antonio. It's South San Antonio, right?
Yes, Mark is
Okay.
the guy who sold it to me.
Okay. He probably can't remember how to get
He
there.
can't remember, yeah. He took the money and ran.
Do we, Carmen, do we have any online questions?
Yes. What other properties are you operating?
So within a mile of Darby Square, there's a 20-unit B class that I operate out of Darby Square. And then there's about 8 miles away, there's an 85-unit that was a deep value play that we currently operate as well.
Yeah, Debbie?
So I was wondering, Pam, if you can just take us through the steps of how you kind of knew enough even to get started, and how much of that came from lifestyles, how much of that came from Metro Doug, sort of how do we go from, being a regular person to somebody that can do something?
Yeah, so here's what I would tell you.
All right, ask a question for the folks.
Yeah, the question is how did you get started? How did you know the decisions that you had to make? What role did lifestyles play for you? Was your mentor involved in all that? That's a very good question, and that's kind of what we talk about is most everybody that comes into our group comes into lifestyles not having any real estate experience, including me. So that's a valid question, Debbie, is to say, where do I start? Where do I begin? How do I make the moves? And for me, we have a whole robust classes that we have that teach on every subject, whether it's leasing, whether it's acquisitions, whether it's touring properties, whether it's about financing. You have the opportunity of learning all that. Coming to case studies, coming to road trips, touring properties. My role primarily is to help our members like Pam underwrite the property. In other words, analyze it. Does it make sense? Is this a property we should buy? Is it a property that we shouldn't buy? Not every property that I look at is one that I say, hey, let's go buy it. Would you like to know that I probably say no on more properties than I do yes? Isn't that a good thing? So we'll help. Pam had the assistance, whether it be from an operation consultant on hiring people, to how to operate the property, from a mentor on, does the deal make sense? How do we get it financed? And then feasibility, due diligence. We'll go to the property once we're under contract. We'll do all of our inspections. We'll do everything. So you're led through the process step by step through the highway. There's always somebody to contact or call, or we can refer you to various education classes and webinars.
And not only that, the lead community and lifestyles stick together. Like just before this meeting, it was a meeting of leads, and we discussed current issues. So we support each other. But the bottom line is you just have to do it. Just do it. You'll figure it
Yeah,
out.
that's a
Everybody
great-
will help you.
That's a great point. And in these lead meetings, it's not about a mentor to get up and talk to them. They're brainstorming sessions. We learn from each other. We listen to each other, whatever challenges they might have. So as an example, do you think I can go to one of my neighboring properties and ask them how much they pay for their toilets? No, they're probably going to say, get the heck out of here. You know, can I ask Pam how much she pays her employees? Can I get referrals from her on people she uses to do unit turns? All that information is shared with the whole group, and we all learn.
I have 3 questions from online. The first one is, did you purchase the 12 unit as an IRO?
No, I had 2 investors.
Okay. The next one, how many total doors do you now have?
I have 180 doors as a lead and 786 as a passive investor.
And the last one is, how many hours do you think you have averaged at the property per week? And how many employees do you have helping you?
That's harder to answer than it seems. So initially, I was at the property every day until I got everything down, until I got my team in place, until all the capital expenses were taken care of. And now I have over 3 properties. I have 5 employees, and I go to Darby twice a week. I stop by,
Yeah.
I collect the money.
To answer that question, it really depends on the condition of the asset when you buy it. If there's a lot of deferred maintenance or a lot of work that has to go back into it, a lead will find themselves at the property, transitioning the property, meeting with contractors, doing the necessary things to create the environment that they're looking for on that, and that can take time. But once the property is stabilized, then, as Pam mentioned, you know, you can focus on other things, or, you know, working with your staff and team. Yeah.
So are you going to buy another small one, or are you looking to scale up?
I want to scale up to something at least 100 units, probably bigger if I can.
Yeah.
Is that because of the economies of scale, so that you don't have to be there as much, or just a challenge? You seem pretty driven.
Economy of scale, definitely. So more units, and you can have maybe fewer employees.
She only wants to go once a week.
Well, in order to have full-time staff, you really need to have something 65, 70 units or larger to warrant full-time staffing and maintenance and that. Yes, sir.
My question is, as a passive investor, how quickly, I guess in this property that you had, how quickly did they, let's say somebody investing $100,000, how soon did they get all of their money back, and kind of how was their profit margin after that?
Yeah, so let me ask the question. The question is, as a passive investor, you know, I think your question is when do I start getting returns? When do I see my money come back to me? It all depends on the type of asset that you're purchasing. If you're buying a stabilized property, which Pam did, you might see return on investments or cash on cash distributions from the operation of the property paid out quarterly. And during that quarterly distribution, you will receive a narrative from the lead investor that talked about, now this actually comes every month, about the activity that occurred on the property, the P&L statements, balance sheets. So you as a passive investor will get provided all type of reports monthly, and then distributions in most cases are done quarterly based on the overall performance. Now, in her case, she did a supplemental loan that allowed her to go borrow more money because the property was performing well, and she shared 75% of that with her investors. Remember, she borrowed another the $1 million, and she returned $750 to the investors. That's where that was in the 3rd year that on that. But it's up to the discretion of the lead investor when those distributions are paid out. Now, when she sells the property, that's when the entire equity capture upon sale is returned to the investors. That's when you would receive your final payback on that.
Okay, so I mean, if I was to invest $100,000, then it could be 3 years before I get it.
So generally, the lead investor will provide a pro forma. This property is going to be a 3-year hold, or it's going to be a 5-year hold, or we're going to refinance out in the 3rd year and hold it another 4 years. They will provide you all that information, and you as a passive investor need to decide, does this investment fit my financial criteria? You will have enough information to make an intelligent decision on whether you do want to invest or you're not. You'll know the answer. But at the end of the day, the lead investor runs a property. They'll make the decisions. In most cases, they'll reach out to their passive investors, take a vote to say, we think we'd like to sell now, or we think we want to hold on to it. That's all normal discussion that you'll have within your investment group. Yes.
This isn't a negative connotation in any way. It's just a real-time kind of thing with the experience that she had with Darby. For instance, there was a 211% return, correct? That would include the distributions on top of what you made. Say somebody put in $100,000, invested $100,000.
Yeah. So let me. Yeah. So. What it doesn't include.
You got to re-ask the question.
Oh, all right. You're wanting to understand the overall return, assuming the property is sold. Well, as I.
Yeah, real life says, well, I guess it's not sold, right? So
No, but it's a projection based off of what we've known. But what's not. Yes, there will be some additional closing costs that will come. You know, the lead will have some overrides that they're entitled to. What we're showing you is the overall return on the investment. The overall return, which does include, you know, projected what she's paid out year to date, plus any reserves that may be on hand at the time of closing as well. So it's a projection, and it's a pretty close one.
One last question.
Al?
Voice in the back.
Al?
So Pam, 5 years ago, I became a member, and you were one of the first lead investors that I had the opportunity to review the deal. I'm a little foggy on the original projection, so can you help us understand, what was your original projection for the returns on Darby compared to where you're at today?
Okay, the question is what you originally shared as pro forma or projections on the property, how does that differ today versus what we reviewed?
So we were supposed to get about 7 to 8% returns every year, but we were supposed to hold the property a lot longer because we still had about 7 years left on the loan when we assumed it. So the only thing that we're not meeting pro forma on is that I'm selling it early because market conditions right now are so very good.
So you did better.
So what?
You did better.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Pam, very much for giving back and telling your story.